Discover how a single mom janitor transformed Millionaire's twin daughters' lives in just 30 days. Sarah wiped her brow as the last echoes of students faded down the hallway. Another long day was drawing to a close. Maplewood Academy, an elite prep school that echoed with the sounds of privilege and success, was just a backdrop to her daily grind. As a janitor and single mom, Sarah wore her exhaustion like a badge, but her heart was always full of dreams for her spirited 8-year-old son, Cody. Every evening, she scrubbed floors more than she scrubbed off her hopes: a better life for Cody, a life free of the shackles of endless bills, worn-out shoes, and empty fridge shelves. The school was a world apart. Each day, she observed twin sisters Emma and Chloe glide through the glamorous halls, their designer outfits befitting royalty. They laughed with a confidence that seemed so foreign to her. Yet, beyond that polished facade, she sensed an underlying strain she couldn't quite name. Was happiness truly bought with money? One afternoon, while sorting some items in the supply closet, she accidentally stumbled upon a heated, hushed argument. Emma and Chloe were at odds over demanding grades and their father's stifling expectations. Their words, laced with tears of frustration, tugged fiercely at Sarah's heart. She couldn't let them drown in their pain. She saw in them an opportunity to connect. "Why don't you two come volunteer with us?" she suggested with a hopeful spark in her eye. "Cody and I are starting a local community initiative. It could do us all some good." The twins hesitated, their world of pressure starkly contrasting Sarah's struggles, yet curiosity flickered in their eyes. A break from their perfect lives, perhaps. And just like that, an improbable bond began to form. For weeks, Sarah led the girls from one community project to another, each encounter unearthing layers of richness they never knew existed. They painted walls in shelters filled with families fighting their own battles. They held hands with children whose smiles came from simple joy rather than shiny toys. Emma and Chloe, entangled in their privilege, began to peel back the brittle layers of their existence. But all too soon, their father's presence loomed over them like a dark cloud. He burst into their newfound sanctuary, furious and shrill, threatening to yank his daughters out of their community service. "You will not waste your time with these people," he spat, dismissing Sarah's efforts and belittling Emma and Chloe's deepening friendship. His words pierced the atmosphere, leaving a rattling silence. Caught in a whirlwind of family loyalty and authenticity, the twins turned to Sarah, whose determination shone bright against the storm. This was their moment to choose between a life dictated by wealth or a future defined by genuine courage. As their world crumbled, would they reclaim their identity or submit to their father's iron grip? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The question hung in the air, thick with tension. Emma and Chloe's eyes sparkled with newfound tenacity amid the fear, and as they glanced back at Sarah, they began to understand something deeper. In a world that sought to define their worth through wealth, could they redefine it themselves? The tension was palpable, their hearts pounded in anticipation, and readers were left wondering, would they have the courage to embrace their true selves, and at what cost? Sarah felt the weight of the moment wash over her, a torrent of emotions swirling inside. Emma and Chloe looked trapped between their father's expectations and the newfound authenticity they began to cherish. It was a struggle she recognized all too well, the pull of societal norms versus the whisper of true self. She took a step closer to them, her voice steady. "You don't have to let him decide who you are. This is your life." They exchanged silent glances, their hearts racing as they absorbed her words. For the first time, the twins seemed awakened to a choice that lay just beyond their gilded cage. The spark of rebellion flickered, igniting something inside them that had been dormant for too long. Without a word, Emma stepped forward, chin lifted defiantly. "We want to help," she declared, her voice steadier than Sarah had ever heard. Chloe nodded, her determination matching her sister's. "We want to make a difference. Together." Just like that, the air shifted. Sarah felt a rush of pride, a motherly instinct wrapping around her heart. The twins were forging their own path, leaving behind the suffocating expectations etched upon them by their father. Sarah knew they couldn't stop there, the next step would be crucial. Together, the trio devised a plan. They decided to organize a community festival, showcasing the talents of local artists and musicians, providing a platform for voices often overlooked. The buzz of laughter and color would create something beautiful, a striking contrast to everything they were escaping. As preparations began, intensity filled the air. The days became a blur of painting signs, organizing food donations, and rallying volunteers. Emma and Chloe brought their classmates into the fold, infecting them with their newfound passion. The twins took charge, guiding others in this effort, and in doing so, they transformed from passive participants into fierce leaders. But the storm wasn't over. The girls' father caught wind of their plans and launched a counterattack. He caught Emma in the hall one afternoon, his voice sharp and commanding. "Do you want to be known as the charity case? This is not where you belong." His face twisted with anger, every word dripping with disdain. Emma's heart raced, and for a moment, doubt crept in. She felt the loathsome grip of expectation tightening around her. But Chloe stood a few steps behind, her eyes wide with anxiety yet filled with a determination that mirrored Sarah's. They had come so far, built bridges where there had only been walls. Emma took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. She met her father's gaze and responded with strength she didn't even know she possessed. "I belong where I choose to be. And I choose this." In that moment, for the first time, Sarah saw a break in the chains that had bound the twins for so long. They were stepping into their power, and Sarah felt the warmth of hope wrapping around her, bright and fierce. It was a reminder that real connection could change lives. But as the festival loomed on the horizon, shadows still lingered. Could the twins withstand their father's fury? Would they find the strength to lean on each other when it mattered most? As the date approached, the heartbeat of the community grew louder, but so did the threat of division. Would they stand together against adversity, or would old fears stifle their voices once more? The night before the festival held secrets yet to be uncovered, and each promise of joy also whispered the risk of heartbreak. What awaited them at dawn? The sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, as anxious energy swept through Sarah's tiny home. The aroma of fried dough wafted from the kitchen, but her mind was elsewhere. She looked at the twins, nestled together on the couch, their faces a mix of excitement and worry. They had worked tirelessly for this moment, yet a gnawing doubt loomed large in the silence. "Are you nervous?" Sarah asked, trying to mask her own fluttering heart. Chloe nodded somberly, twisting her hair between her fingers. "What if Dad shows up? What if he ruins everything?" Emma shot her a reassuring glance. "He can't ruin what we've built. He doesn't own us." Sarah felt the warmth of Emma's words wrap around her like a comforting blanket. This was about so much more than a festival. It was about rewriting their story, rebelling against what had held them captive for too long. Hours later, the community center buzzed with anticipation. Lights twinkled overhead, illuminating a space bursting with color and sound. Tables filled with local artists' paintings and handmade crafts lined the walls. Children laughed, their innocence echoing through the hall, while the smell of chili and cornbread trailed from the food stands. As the festivities kicked off, Sarah took a moment to soak it all in. Emma and Chloe were smiles and laughter, weaving through the crowd, hugging friends and welcoming strangers. They had become the heart of this festival, radiant in their authenticity. Suddenly, a chilling gust swept through the entryway. Sarah's stomach twisted as she recognized that controlled fury. He was here. The man who had always claimed his daughter's futures. Where are my girls? His booming voice cut through the lively chatter like a knife, demanding attention. Emma and Chloe froze mid-laugh, their cheerful expressions fading. Sarah's heart raced as she shifted into protective mode. She stepped closer, placing herself between the girls and their father. They're right here, celebrating what they love. And no one gets to take that away from them. His eyes narrowed, simmering with contempt. This is embarrassing. You're making a mockery of our family name. Before she could respond, the twins took a defiant step forward. We're not ashamed of who we are, Chloe said, her voice steady. This is our choice. Our life. Not yours. Amid the crowded room, a collective gasp rippled through the audience. Sarah could see a mixture of hope and admiration reflected back in their eyes. A community rallying around the twins' courage. Their father's face flushed with anger, yet for the first time, he appeared vulnerable. The foundation he stood upon was cracking. His daughters were no longer his shadows, they radiated light that refused to be dimmed. In that moment, Sarah felt a swell of emotion. Relief washed over her as she realized that the twins were finally embracing their truth. Could they hold on to this newfound strength when the challenge escalated? Then, against the vibrant backdrop, a familiar tune filled the air. The local band began to play, their music piercing through the tension. With the first strum of the guitar, something magical happened. The weight of fear lifted, and the crowd began to clap along, infusing the space with contagious joy. But as the rhythm thrummed through the hall, Sarah caught a glimpse of something darker lurking at the edge of the room. A figure, someone unknown, watching closely with an unsettling gaze. Who were they, and what role would they play in this unfolding story? The momentum built around them, but the festival held its breath, teetering on the edge of reality. Would the twins' resilience stand when faced with unforeseen challenges, or would the shadows of their past catch up at the worst possible moment? The music swelled around them, a joyful refuge in the chaos that was about to unfold. Sarah's eyes darted toward the shadowed figure, and her heart raced anew. Who were they? What did they want? The vibrant energy of the festival clashed with her tight stomach, and she knew she couldn't ignore it. Emma and Chloe remained blissfully unaware of the looming threat, their laughter ringing out like a bell, intoxicating in its innocence. They danced, twirled, and held hands, creating a bubble of bright happiness that was all-consuming. Sarah wanted nothing more than to join them. To let the music wash away the tension, but a hard knot of worry anchored her feet to the ground. Pushing her way through the crowd, she began to navigate toward the edge of the hall where the shadow loomed larger, detached from the exhilaration around them. The figure shifted, revealing a familiar face. It was their mother's brother, Uncle Ryan. Surprise flared through her veins, mixed with a sense of dread. He hadn't been part of their lives in years, and his presence felt both incongruous and unsettling. "Why are you here?" Sarah asked, forcing her voice to steady as she approached him. "This isn't a good time." Ryan smirked, cocking his head to the side, pretending to be interested in the colorful crafts. "I just thought I'd drop in, see how things were going. Heard you had a little celebration, figured it might be a spectacle." It wasn't just the disdain in his tone that unsettled her, it was the way his eyes drifted to the girls, barely contained malice glimmering behind their corners. "They're thriving," Sarah countered, her voice even but strained. "Our community is building something beautiful here." "Is that what you call this? Beautiful?" He gestured dismissively while keeping his gaze on the twins. "You know, their father may be a lot of things, but he has a way of asserting authority. He doesn't like it when people go against him, especially not you." Sarah felt herself bristle at the empty threat. "You don't know what you're talking about. We're not afraid of him. Or you." Ryan leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "You should be. I know things that could unravel all this, community nonsense. Your little festival won't protect them forever." At that moment, Sarah turned to glance back at Emma and Chloe, their laughter ringing out like chimes, untouched by the dark feel of their uncle's presence. She had promised herself to keep them safe, and here it was, a battle escalating before her. Just as she felt the urge to respond, a sudden commotion broke out nearby. A burst of laughter quickly turned into worried whispers, and the band staggered to a stop. She turned to see a couple of teenagers fighting near one of the food stalls, drawing the crowd's attention. All eyes shifted, including those of Ryan, as the atmosphere shifted again, the lightness replaced with tension. With adrenaline surging, Sarah grabbed Ryan's arm, her voice barely above a whisper, "Stay away from my daughters." Their eyes locked, and for a fleeting moment, she saw something behind his bravado, a flicker of fear, or maybe regret. But instead of retreating, he tilted his head, his smirk widening ominously. "We'll see who stays away from whom." As the crowd's attention turned toward the chaos, Sarah felt the world narrowing. Would the twins' blissful rebellion be enough to shield them from the gathering storm? What cracks would begin to form in their newfound strength? With chaos igniting fear around them, Sarah inhaled deeply, preparing to confront not just Ryan but whatever shadow threatened their moment of triumph. Would fear hold them back, or would they face it together, united as a family? As the fight escalated, her heartbeat quickened. The real confrontation was just beginning. Would they have the courage to stand tall, or would chaos swallow them whole? The shouting intensified, echoing through the hall as festival-goers rushed towards the source of the commotion. Sarah felt her pulse thrumming in her ears. Her eyes flitted back to Emma and Chloe, they were still dancing, blissfully ignorant. Panic tightened in her chest. She had to protect them, shield their innocence from the lurking darkness. "Come on, let us go." She tugged at Ryan's sleeve, dragging him with her as she hurried back to where the girls were. The crowd surged around them, pulling them apart. Ryan didn't resist, he seemed almost amused by her desperation. As they reached the outskirts of the chaos, Sarah turned to see the twins, noticing the rising tension. Their smiles faded, replaced by confusion and concern. "Mom!" Emma called, her small voice barely breaking through the din. Chloe's hand gripped Emma's tightly, both girls instinctively drawing closer to their mother. "We're okay," Sarah assured, forcing a smile even though fear gripped her. "Just stay close." But Ryan's dark silhouette lingered, creeping back toward the laughter of the festival like a shadow intent on smothering the light. "You can protect them for now, but how long can you keep this up?" he called out, voice laced with mockery. Suddenly, a sharp scream erupted from the food stall, and someone toppled over, tripping on fallen supplies. The rest of the crowd recoiled in shock, and an urgent ripple of tension swept through the air. "Sarah," Chloe said, her voice tremulous, glancing briefly at the escalating fight not far away. "What is happening?" "Nothing we can't handle," Sarah reassured her, determination hardening in her voice. "But we need to stay together." She wrapped her arms protectively around her daughters as the chaos swirled around them. The beauty of the festival seemed to dim, and the music faded into a background noise of shouting and anger. Sarah's heart raced, but she clung to her fierce love, knowing that she had to draw strength from it. The girls were counting on her to be their shield. The fight near the food stall took a dark turn as more people became involved, pushing and shoving under the frantic laughter of friends turned into startled onlookers. Sarah inhaled, fighting the urge to flee. No way would she turn her back on her family. "Stay here," she instructed Emma and Chloe, stepping out of their protective circle. She felt a rush of courage seep through her veins, fueled by a desperate need to protect her girls. "Mom, don't!" Emma protested, worry painted across her small face. "I'll be right back." Sarah forced out the words, taking a step toward the chaos. The air felt electric, charged with anxiety, anger, and, for some, excitement. She saw familiar faces in the crowd, friends who had supported them through thick and thin, but they too were caught up in the frenzy, uncertain how to respond. The fight escalated, and suddenly a chair flew across the space, narrowly missing Sarah as she ducked instinctively. Heart racing, she sidestepped. "This can't keep happening," she whispered to herself. Only minutes ago, they had been celebrating hope and community. Enough! Sarah shouted, her voice rising above the chaos, conviction blazing like a beacon within her. But as the shouting subsided momentarily, their eyes widened not at her but at something behind her. The world around her froze as she turned her head slowly, dread pooling in her stomach. Ryan was now standing directly behind her, his expression menacing, blocking her path back to her daughters. "You should have stayed away," he taunted softly. Just then, the crowd erupted again, but this time Sarah felt an entirely new wave of fear wash over her. Would she remain steadfast, or would this be the moment everything began to unravel? As the tension coiled tighter around them, a question lingered: could she truly face this monster and defend her children, or were they about to witness the dark side of family ties? The air crackled with tension as the crowd surged restlessly, moving like a tide of uncertainty. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, a steady drumbeat of fear and resolve. Ryan's eyes, cold and calculating, bore into her, each moment stretching into eternity. "Let them go," she demanded, her voice sharp with urgency. She had to stay strong for Emma and Chloe, for herself. She couldn't show weakness. But Ryan only laughed, a low, chilling sound that sliced through the noise of the chaos around them. "Why would I do that? They're part of this too," he replied, a cruel grin spreading across his face. "You think you can shield them forever?" Behind her, the girls clutched each other tightly. She could feel the tremors of their small bodies, the weight of their worry resting on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. Sarah glanced back, her heart sinking at the sight of their bright eyes clouded with fear. "Mom, please." Emma whimpered, taking a cautious step forward, her tiny hand reaching out for comfort. "We're okay, baby. Just stay close," she whispered, trying to radiate calm even when the world felt like it was collapsing around them. Ryan took a step forward, closing the distance. "You're out of your depth, Sarah," he sneered, reaching out as if to touch her shoulder, but she flinched back, instinct screaming at her to protect her daughters at all costs. "Don't come any closer," Sarah shouted, her voice breaking slightly, reflection of the fear swirling underneath. The rawness of her words surprised her. She wasn't just defending their present, she was fighting for their future. The crowd shifted again, drawn towards the escalating conflict with morbid curiosity. Sarah could see faces she recognized, neighbors who had once shared happy moments at block parties and BBQs, but now they looked lost amid the chaos. Some cheered on the fight like it was a sport, while others looked on with disbelief, unsure which way to act. "Stop it!" she yelled again, desperation creeping into her tone. "This is supposed to be a celebration. We should be enjoying the festival, not tearing each other apart." A small part of her screamed to flee, to grab her daughters and run away, but another part ignited a fire inside her, urging her to stand tall and fight for the light. She couldn't back down. Ryan's laughter came again, this time mocking. "You think your words will change anything? This is what life is, Sarah. You can't shield them from reality forever." But in that moment, something shifted. The crowd had quieted, tension drawn taut like a string, waiting for someone to snap it. Sarah felt a sudden surge of courage, bolstered by the resolute gaze of her daughters. They needed her more than ever. "I may not be able to shield them from everything," she proclaimed, each word firm and clear, "but I will fight for their right to feel safe. I will fight for their happiness." The declaration hung in the air, drawing some gasps and murmurs from the onlookers. The atmosphere shifted subtly, as if the crowd realized they too were part of something larger, a community that had lost its way but could still find its path again. Ryan's expression faltered, and for a moment, doubt flickered in his eyes. "You think you can change anything?" He spat, but his bravado was cracking. "I don't just think it," she replied, feeling empowered. "I will." Then with a sudden crash, a stray trash can toppled over, and the commotion thoroughly broke loose once again. In that instant, Sarah knew one thing more than ever: she had to reclaim the night. "Girls, now! she yelled, grabbing their hands tightly, ready to pull them back to safety. But just as they turned, she caught a glimpse of Ryan lunging toward her. Was this truly the moment she had to confront him? Her heart raced, each beat reverberating with a primal instinct to protect her own. What would happen next? Would fear or courage win this fierce contest of wills? With her daughters beside her, Sarah would discover the answer in the next heartbeat. The tension in the air thickened as Sarah spun around, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Her heart pounded more fiercely now, each beat a reminder of what was at stake. She wasn't just fighting Ryan. She was fighting for the future of her daughters. "Back off, Ryan!" she shouted, her voice steadying as a surge of defiance blossomed within her. She took a step forward, willing to meet him head-on. The crowd quieted, breaths held, eyes wide as they sensed the impending clash. "Do you really think you can stand up to me?" Ryan sneered, his confidence unraveling slightly. But Sarah saw the fear in his eyes, fear that maybe, just maybe, he was losing control of the situation. Emma tugged at her mother's hand, a whisper of uncertainty escaping her lips. "Mom, please stay behind me, Emma," Sarah commanded, squeezing her daughter's hand. Chloe, ever the brave one, stood beside them, her small frame trembling but resolute. "Look around," Ryan said, gesturing wildly at the crowd. "This is who we are. This is a celebration of power and survival. You think you can change that with your words and dreams?" But Sarah's heart swelled with a clarity that banished doubt. "It starts here, Ryan. Right now. You can't keep using fear to control us. We are more than this." The crowd started to murmur, as if her words were an echo that resonated deep within them, a familiar longing for safety and unity. With a sudden shift, the atmosphere began to change. Eyes turned towards each other, tentative glances exchanged. It was as if the community had been nudged awake, yearning for connection over confrontation. "Sarah, you're fooling yourself," Ryan retorted, though a flicker of uncertainty crossed his features. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially in front of this audience. "Am I?" she fired back. "Or am I finally making you realize that we're tired of being pawns in someone else's game? We deserve to celebrate together, not fight." The weight of her declaration hung in the air, electrifying. A woman in the crowd, arms crossed and brow furrowed, finally stepped forward. "She's right. We used to be a community." She glanced around, eyes shimmering with recognition. "We've lost our way." As if a switch had flipped, murmurs transformed into voices of agreement. An elderly man, once a fixture at block parties, called out, "Don't let a bully dictate our lives." More voices joined in, a chorus rising against the chaos that had taken over their lives. Ryan's confidence was fading now, replaced by a palpable tension as the crowd slowly closed ranks behind Sarah and her daughters. "You're inciting a rebellion, Sarah," he shouted, but the determination in Sarah's eyes seemed to carry something more powerful than his threats. "Something needs to change," she exclaimed, her voice firm, unwavering. "Fear has held us prisoner long enough." Suddenly, Sarah caught movement out of the corner of her eye. A group of teenagers, empowered by the shift in sentiment, began stepping forward to surround her. Their faces mirrored her resolve, vibrant with the hope that change was possible. Ryan stood alone now, the scorn on his face replaced by worry. "You think this is a game? You think you can bring everyone together?" "Together we're stronger," Sarah declared, knowing it was true. In the heart of all turmoil, the light of unity shone bright, illuminating paths that had been forgotten. The cheers from the crowd erupted, a wave of collective strength that threatened to engulf Ryan completely. For the first time, he appeared vulnerable, uncertain. Just then, Sarah felt a sudden tug at her shirt. It was Chloe, her eyes wide and filled with something Sarah hadn't seen before: courage. "Mom, let us show him." Sarah looked down at her daughter and felt an unexpected warmth. Was this the moment they had waited for? The moment their voices, combined, could break the walls that held them captive. But just as they formed a united front, the night spiraled into confusion. A shrill scream pierced through the air, freezing everyone in place. Was the threat really over? Or was it just beginning? In that instant, uncertainty unraveled together with hope, leaving Sarah standing at a crossroad she never anticipated. Would the community rally behind her in this vital moment? Would she and her daughters be safe, or would they face an even greater danger? The scream rippled through the crowd like a stone thrown into a still lake, sending shockwaves of fear and confusion. Eyes darted everywhere, searching for the source of chaos. Sarah's heart raced, but she refused to succumb to the panic threatening to engulf her. She instinctively stepped forward, holding Chloe and Emma close, their small bodies a buoy for her resolve. What was that? A voice quivered from the back. Is someone hurt? Ryan's mask of bravado slipped, revealing a flicker of anxiety as he scanned the perimeter. The community was on the brink of awakening, and he knew the danger of losing control in front of an audience that was once his loyal subject. Enough of this! Ryan shouted, but his voice quivered, the power he thrived on dangerously waning. Who dares to disrupt our celebration? The crowd murmured hesitantly, but Sarah sensed determination sparking within them. She turned to them, faced them head-on, her spirit on fire with urgency. We can't let fear drive us apart. We need to know what is happening. Just then, a figure burst through the crowd, a frantic young woman, her face pale, and eyes wide with terror. There's been an accident. At the edge of the fairgrounds. Someone got hurt. Gasps erupted around them. The crowd wavered, caught between the thrill of rebellion and the instinct to rush to aid. Sarah's mind raced. What if it was too late for so many? Their unity could either save lives or be snuffed out by fear. Let us go. A voice shouted, rallying the group. We can help. You don't have to go alone. Sarah cried, pushing through the throngs toward the chaos. With her daughters in hand, she felt a rush of adrenaline as she took charge. Stay close. Chloe clutched her sister, resolutely moving behind their mother. Emma looked up, a mix of fear and admiration blooming in her eyes. This is who her mother was, a protector, a fighter. They were in this together, and each step forward seemed to amplify their strength. As they moved towards the commotion, a desperate panic swept through the crowd. Voices tangled together, each person weaving their own tale of dread. There are paramedics on the way. Someone called out. But we need to do something now. Sarah pushed to the front of the gathering, the crowd parting reluctantly. Her heart was pounding not just with fear, but with purpose, a desire that ignited her very soul. If they were to lead, they had to act. The scene unfolded before her, a hollowed-out tent, someone lying on the ground, moans of pain punctuating the air. She felt Chloe's grip tighten, but one glance at her daughter showed her this was more than fear. They were ready to confront the realities of their community. As they reached the central chaos, someone shouted, "We need to apply pressure to the wound." Without thinking, Sarah stepped forward. "I'm a nurse," she called, even though it had been years since she had worked in the field, but urgency overrode her doubts. "Mom." Emma pulled at her sleeve desperately. "You can't, I have to try." Turning to the crowd, she rallied those standing by. "Everyone, we need organization. Can someone locate a first aid kit? We need to clear a space." Their voices shifted from murmurs to supportive calls, a sense of unity now directed at a single mission. The spark she ignited was more powerful than fear, it was hope formed in a shared purpose. They could be more than followers together, they were a force. But then, just as they began to find a way to help, Sarah caught the movement of Ryan from the corner of her eye. He was edging away, a shadow slipping into the night, fear palpable as he realized he was losing control of not just the crowd but of that which he once dominated. "Where are you going?" Sarah shouted, instinctively wanting to bind him to the moment, to make him see the power of their solidarity. As Ryan paused, a realization yet to dawn on him, Sarah felt her heart seize. What had this all awakened within them? Was this the beginning of a change they desperately needed? Or would Ryan's desperation plunge them back into a darkness they had just begun to escape? In the depths of the crisis, a new battle loomed. Would they stand together against Ryan, or would he exploit their fear one last time? The air felt charged, and Sarah knew this was just the beginning of something bigger. With the air thick with tension, Sarah pushed forward, her heart racing faster than ever. The crowd had momentarily forgotten about their own fears, their focus shifting to the injured person on the ground. Voices mixed into a cacophony of urgency as people stepped up, determined to help. "Someone, please. We need water." A man shouted, his voice cutting through the panic. Sarah quickly scanned the faces around her, feeling an unfamiliar sense of strength surging through her. This was a moment where they needed each other, not leaders or followers, just humans united in empathy. "Chloe, Emma, stay nearby," she instructed, her tone firm yet soothing. The girls nodded, their eyes wide but resolute. It was as if they understood, at such tender ages, the gravity of the situation. She knelt next to the injured person, a young man, his forehead slick with sweat and panic. Blood seeped through his shirt, but his eyes locked onto Sarah's, expressing a desperate plea for help. "I'm here," she said softly, pressing her hands around the wound. "You're going to be okay. We're going to take care of this." Pressure. Someone yelled again, handing her a faded t-shirt drawn from the crowd's collective chaos. Without hesitation, Sarah applied it firmly over the wound, hoping to stem the bleeding. Her instincts kicked in, each movement deliberate as she focused solely on this moment. A hand touched her shoulder. It was Ryan, returning from his hasty retreat, breathing heavily. What can I do?" he stammered, his earlier bravado nowhere to be found. "Get a first aid kit," Sarah commanded. "And calm the crowd." It was a small win to see the shock in his eyes, that he was no longer the one to instill fear. As Ryan scurried away, Sarah turned back to the injured man. Each second felt like an eternity. The murmurs of encouragement grew louder. "You're strong," she whispered to him, pushing back her own fears to give him strength. She caught sight of Emma, her daughter standing tall despite the chaos surrounding them. Moments crawled by, the incessant sirens of paramedics finally approached, cutting through the tension like a knife. Relief washed over Sarah, but dread still clung stubbornly to her heart. What lay ahead? Finally, the paramedics emerged, bringing with them an air of expertise. They swiftly took charge, but before they whisked the young man away, he met Sarah's gaze one last time. "Thank you," he gasped, gratitude shining even through the pain. Her heart swelled. This was a moment that reaffirmed the reason she jumped into action. As the crowd began to disperse, whispers of appreciation and curiosity flowed through the air. "Did you see that? Sarah is a hero." But her attention soon returned to Ryan. He was visibly shaken, standing off to the side, watching what had unfolded with eyes full of uncertainty. "Ryan," she called, striding over, heart racing. "Everything has changed tonight. You can't keep running. They rely on us to guide them." He flinched but didn't retreat. It was an opening, a chance to confront the truth of who he was becoming and who he might still be. Sarah locked eyes with him, willing him to recognize the power of community over control. "You can't hide from this anymore. We need to face it together." Ryan's shoulders drooped, his defenses crumbling. There was vulnerability now, crying out for connection in a time when they needed each other most. What if I can't?" he whispered, his voice cracking. "Then don't," Sarah said, the words pouring out with unexpected weight. "Let us carry you if that's what it takes. We can build something better. It starts now." The crowd began to stir again, chatter filling the air, and for the first time in a long while, hope sparked anew. Residents lingered, sharing stories, rallying together, their fears slowly dissipating. But just as things seemed to settle, a sharp voice called out from the back of the crowd. What about the real danger? What if this happens again? The question hung heavily in the air, a reminder that while unity was powerful, the battle wasn't finished. A chill crept down Sarah's spine. What lay ahead threatened to rip open wounds still fresh. Would they stand together once more when deeper shadows loomed? Would Ryan stop running and become part of the light? The journey toward their new reality was just beginning, and it demanded every ounce of their courage. The night settled like a blanket, but beneath it, a fire had ignited. Sarah stood before the crowd, the atmosphere vibrating with adrenaline and urgency. The festival, meant to be a celebration, had transformed into a pivotal moment of reawakening. Unity buzzed in the air, yet the menacing question posed earlier lingered: what if this chaos returned? Gathering their courage, the community members began to drift back around Sarah. They were tired of silence, scared of the unpredictability that shadowed their lives. Sarah took a deep breath, her heart steadying. Listen up. She called, her voice firm. We've gathered to celebrate, but we also need to acknowledge what we face together. This isn't just about what happened tonight. This is about being here for one another, standing strong in the face of fear. The crowd held its breath, opening themselves to her words. They were listening, they were ready to overcome the shadows together. Ryan stood alongside her, visibly changed by the unfolding events. His earlier arrogance had faded. As the crowd began clamoring for solutions, he took a step forward, trying to bridge the gap. I've neglected my responsibility, he confessed, the words tearing from him. I see now true authority comes from lifting each other up, not ruling from fear. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. They were witnessing a man embracing vulnerability, understanding that control was not power, it was a part of community. One brave voice shouted from the back, we need a plan. We can't just react. We need to prepare. Sarah nodded, feeling the new intensity rising within her, fueled by shared determination. Exactly. Let's start talking about what we can do together: community watch programs, regular meetings, and open channels for support. Chloe and Emma stood by, eyes wide in admiration as their mom led. They felt the energy shift, every whisper from the crowd reinforcing the notion that they weren't just bystanders anymore. They were part of a collective heartbeat, a pulse that sang of resilience. Gradually, the crowd began to act. People stepped forward, offering their skills: artists who could create awareness posters, teachers who could hold workshops on community safety, and medical professionals willing to help train others in emergency situations. Together, they were hungry for change. Among them was an elderly woman. As she approached, her wrinkled hands trembled with age, but her voice was clear. I've seen violence before. We used to have neighborhood watch meetings every month. What happened? We must revive that connection. The momentum surged. The crowd cheered, inspired to reconnect, to take charge of their shared fate. As plans unfolded under the glow of the moonlight, Sarah felt tears brimming at the corners of her eyes, not from sadness, but from joy. This was transformation, raw and beautiful. Their commitment to one another solidified what she had hoped they could all achieve. Let us meet again next week, Sarah proclaimed. We need to keep this fire burning. From fear, we will rise, uniting our voices, demanding our right to safety together. Behind her, Emma and Chloe clasped hands tightly, fervently nodding. Their smiles spread wide and bright. In that moment, they weren't just standing beside their mother, they were learning a lesson deeper than any teacher in a classroom could impart. Ryan, standing slightly apart, watching the community band together, absorbed the palpable camaraderie. Clarity washed over him. I'll be there too, he announced, surprising himself as much as everyone else. If I can help, I want to. A wave of energy rushed through the crowd and Sarah smiled broadly, sensing the warmth of a new future cascading over them. Was it possible they could heal even the wound that divided them? The festival wasn't fully back, but hope resided in every heartbeat and every smile exchanged. As families began to mingle again, laughter intertwined with renewed purpose. "Mom, we did it!" Emma exclaimed, running up to Sarah, joy radiating from her tiny frame. "Yes, you did, sweetheart," Sarah replied, pulling both girls into an embrace, a solid reminder of their strength found together. Togetherness held them as they prepared to face what came next. This wasn't merely about thwarting fear, it was about allowing love, trust, and community to guide every step moving forward. Even as faces lit up with determination, one question remained in the corner of Sarah's mind: was Ryan ready to share this journey? With the shadows of their past visible, was he going to stand alongside them as one meant to celebrate real life together? But in that moment, it didn't matter. Each of them, a collective of bonded hearts, stood at a precipice into their future. The call to rise above the darkness had just begun. With renewed courage, they stepped forward hand in hand, ready to reclaim their reality and write a new story for themselves and the lives woven around them. Now, the journey continued, but they wouldn't face it alone. This was their moment. And it was only the beginning. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending below. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.